During the night in October 1837, Mary Stevens was on her way through Clapham Common when a strange figure leapt at her from a dark alley. After immobilizing the poor girl with a tight grip of his arms, he began to forcibly kiss her, while ripping at her clothes and touching her bare skin with his metallic claws. In a panic, the girl screamed, thankfully making the diabolical attacker flee the scene.
There have been reports of strange creatures in the area.
Witnesses say they couldn't believe what they were seeing.
What is that? Welcome, beloved fofers, doubters, naysayers, non-believers, and skeptics. Welcome to Paranormal Fable or Fact. I am Victor Trevino, joined by my co-host and beautiful wife, Tammy.
We are your humble guides to tales of alleged hoaxes, unbelievable stories, and the overall strange.
Yep. All right. Of course, we're going to have to mention the email. Our email is pfableorfact@proton.me. It's in the show notes.
We also have a Facebook page. It's Paranormal Fable or Fact. It's on Facebook, so look for it on there. Awesome. And like it, join it, follow it, and we post the episodes on there too. So if you're looking for it, and the episodes will be on there too.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's cool that it lets us do that.
Oh, I'm not really good at all that Facebook and Instagram and stuff, but I'm trying, guys. I'm trying.
At least you got that working. I still haven't gotten YouTube working. So
yeah. Once again, we are not professionals.
Not professionals at all. Okay, the gist. Well, first of all, this show is about. It's called Jack Be Nimble.
Okay.
And it's about Spring Heel Jack. The most detailed and documented attacks. Because there was a, and the only reason we're going to read these is because there was like a town hall meeting, and the mayor of that area, or I don't know what they call them in the UK,
yeah,
like a
chancellor. Or,
yeah,
I don't know. Yeah,
I think it's
know.
like a I can't remember.
Duke. I don't know.
Yeah, something.
I don't know.
But of that area.
Yes.
Came out and made a proclamation, talking about how. He made some poor servant girl pass out in the doorway of her home because he knocked on the door and like belched fire in her face, and she like passed out and like went into fits, and wow. I guess like stayed
in that
like seizures or something.
Yes, and stayed in that.
Yeah, she never was in her right mind again.
Oh, that's terrible.
Stuff like that, and then there was other cases of him tearing at women's clothing, scaring people, scaring carriages. So I guess there were other sightings that were going on that I guess weren't documented, or maybe the clippings or the newspaper archives just got lost or whatever.
Oh, okay.
So the only reference we have is this proclamation that was put out by this guy that was, keeping the peace in this area.
Right.
But the most documented cases that we have involves Mary Stevens, who was attacked on October 1837, Jane Alsop, who was attacked the 19th of February in 1838. So what is that, 5 months later, 4 months later?
Yeah.
And then Lucy Scales, which was on the 28th of 1838. So what is that, 11 days later?
Yeah.
Or 12, what is that? No, 9 days later.
Yeah.
So you got a 5-month gap, then an attack, then 9 days later another attack. Mm-hmm. And these were all documented. And I think these were documented because of that proclamation. They had added extra security.
Oh, okay.
So there was more people walking around trying to,
paying attention.
Right. So what happened to Mary Stevens, and I didn't write down all the details because then my notes would have been like 2 pages. So I'm just going to because it's the gist.
Okay.
So the gist of the Mary Stevens attack Apparently, I think she was about 18. So these were all young girls. These were all young girls. Mary Stevens was walking home. It's the one covered in the intro. And somebody leapt on her from the alley and like got her in a bear hug, basically.
Oh, wow.
Pinned her against the wall and started forcibly kissing her.
Yeah.
And then while she's struggling and trying to move her head away from him so she could let out a scream, because she's trying to scream, but he's got his mouth over hers.
Yes.
He's basically tearing off her clothes. Now, you know what women used to dress like back in the Victorian days.
Oh, yeah, layers.
And we talked about this. They had the really tight waistcoats.
Yeah, the waistcoats,
the button-ups,
corsets.
And they went all the way to the throat.
Yes.
So he tore that jacket off of her.
Wow.
Tore off her blouse and apparently tore off her dress.
Wow.
So she basically just had her, her undies on.
Yeah.
And she was bare-chested.
Yeah.
And this was from other research that I did because if you look at the original news clipping, it's very, very subdued. I guess they didn't want to get too vulgar back then. Very careful about what they said, especially since it's a young girl.
Oh, yes.
So it doesn't say it, but if you're taking metal claws sharp enough to tear off that thick coat, and the clothing, she had to have been
cut up a little bit,
pretty badly. I would say not a little bit, pretty badly. Because and how long would it take to do that, to disrobe someone like that? I mean, you're talking, if you're like frantically doing it, maybe
struggling,
yeah. So she was probably pretty badly injured in this attack, and she managed to let out a scream, and passersby ran over, to which he ran off into the darkness.
Okay.
Then you have 5 months later, Jane Alsop. I believe she was only 16 or 17, I believe. She is in her, I think she was 16. She's in her home, knock at the door in the middle, pretty late at night, like 10 o'clock at night or something. She opens the door to this tall gentleman, kind of wrapped up in a cloak. Of course, it's dark outside. And he says, "Girl, bring a candle. We've caught Spring Hill Jack in the alley." And then he proceeds to walk down her, her walkway or whatever. Yeah. So being a dutiful girl and hoping that they did capture this demon, Spring Hill Jack, she runs, fetches a candle, lights it, and then runs back out into the alley next to her house. And as she approaches the gentleman standing there, he turns toward her and had a horrific visage, she said it looked like a demon with horns.
Oh, wow.
But it was like a metallic helmet, is what she described. Flaming red eyes. His cloak, when he spread it, because I guess he spread it out, because he had it wrapped around himself. Yeah. So it's like a Batman thing. He spreads his cloak, and it looks like bat wings.
Oh.
And she said he was wearing really tight white oilskins, or something like oilskins on him, and he attacked her. So he's tearing at her clothes. She turns on her heel and takes off running. And I guess in the dark he kind of lost her because the candle went out when he attacked her, obviously. Right. So she made it almost all the way to the front door, and he caught her on the stoop and then began to tear at her throat and her arms with his claws.
Oh, wow.
And wounded her.
Yeah.
The newspaper describes the sister rushing to her aid, to which he takes off running. Now, it doesn't mention, but I'm sure that the sister didn't just run over there with her fisticuffs.
Right.
She probably had a cleaver or a butcher knife or a shovel, you know what I mean, and chased him off.
Yeah, something to
that's that attack. And that's one of the first times that he was described as wearing like some kind of helmet, because most people said it looked like a mask, like a demon mask.
Wow.
Or something.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that later when we get into the inarguable truths, because there's a problem with that. And we're going to see that a lot. There's a lot of contradictions.
Okay.
That we're going to have to wade through.
Okay.
Because we can't ignore evidence.
No,
can't do it. We won't do it.
No.
We don't allow the debunkers to do it, or the skeptics to do it, so we won't do it.
Right.
Another thing, and this is the Lucy Scales one, and this is pretty much the least minor, but there was two girls involved. It's Lucy Scales and her older sister. Lucy was walking in front. A gentleman standing apparently on the side of the lane near an alley. And he's just standing there. And as they go to pass him, he suddenly turned toward Lucy and blew out this blue and white flame in her face, blinding her and her sister. Just suddenly, like, breathing this fire out of his face. Neither one of them got a good look at him because, of course, they were blinded. To which Mary collapsed and started going into those same fits, right? And then he took off down the alley and disappeared, because her sister started screaming for help. And those are the three main attacks that you'll read about. But then again, there are other reports all over, man. And that's pretty much the gist.
Okay.
Now, again, going into the description, flaming red eyes that some people said looked like fireballs. He could breathe blue and white flames, or belch, or I think one of them was described as vomiting these blue and white flames, which to me is almost would be akin to like a liquid or something. Maybe it was dripping out of his mouth.
Yeah.
Which is really weird. He was able to leap tall distances in a single bound. No, sorry, I couldn't help it. He was able to leap tall distances, cleared 9-foot fences. There's one report of him clearing a wall, and that happened at the Lucy Scales, where Lucy Scales was attacked. The very next day, they saw this figure jump, or as the UK people say it, the Brits say it, they say figure.
Yeah.
A figure jumped in front of the carriage and frightened the driver and the horses so badly that I guess it overturned and the driver was badly, critically injured. I don't know if he died, but he was badly injured. The figure that jumped in front of the carriage, in front of onlookers who came running when they heard the commotion, he leapt, cleared a 9-foot wall like nothing. And that's what allowed him to get away, because who's going to follow him over a 9-foot wall? So there was also reports of him jumping from rooftop to rooftop. He could leap very far distances. So if you started to chase him and he just leaped, he got ahead of it and nobody was fast enough to catch him when he started doing these weird hops.
Yeah.
In fact, there was a theory that maybe it was an escaped kangaroo, which...
Oh, come on. Here we go with these
escaped animals, yes.
Animals. Ay.
With bat wings, and it was wearing a helmet.
Okay, stop.
But the main thing that tripped me out is apparently, and I could only find this in a few reports of my cursory research, he would let out this high-pitched, ringing laugh, like this maniacal laugh that was so unsettling that anyone pursuing him, it was like if a bunch of people were running after him, he let out this ghastly cackle, and people would be like, oh, got so scared they would stop chasing him. So it was like an escape mechanism.
Oh, that's
maybe
interesting.
infrasound?
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. So let's get into the red flags.
Okay,
That's pretty much the gist. The first red flag that I ran into was that it could have been a possibility that these sightings, because the first sighting, when you're doing the cursory research, most people say the first sighting happened in 1837 with the Mary Stevens attack. But that's not necessarily true. There's other people that believe the sightings of Spring Heel Jack happened all the way in the early 1800s, because there were apparently phantoms in that area of London that could be attributed because people described them as wearing white or sometimes dark cloaks. And one of them, I think it was the Southampton ghost that was sighted in 1804 or something for a while, for decades. It would leap. People would see it leaping really high in the air, which matches, but it didn't attack anybody. That was the difference. People just saw him. In fact, I believe the Hammersmith ghost resulted in somebody getting accidentally shot, because this guy, I guess he was a blacksmith or something, and he wore this white, but oil skins, because they were flame resistant and water resistant.
Yeah. That's probably why.
And his wife kept telling him, don't wear that, because they had armed guards looking for these specters. And apparently he continued to wear these white clothing, even though he had already almost got shot a week or two prior, and he wound up getting shot and killed by one of the patrollers. Now, you got to think, baby, because I don't know when the whole anti-gun thing happened in the UK, I don't know when that happened, but apparently when these sightings occurred, they were armed. And I don't even think they were bobbies. I don't think they were police officers, or what do they call them? Constables. They call them
constables. Yeah,
so
that's right.
Yeah. I don't think this guy was a constable. I think it was like a neighborhood watch type thing.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Then they would probably have guns.
And they were armed.
That would make
And
sense.
he accidentally shot this guy. And it was a big deal. But anyway, that's
He
how...
didn't listen. He didn't listen to his wife.
He didn't listen to his wife, right?
Yeah.
So apparently the sightings were so common that they actually set up a neighborhood patrol 30 years prior to the attack on Mary Stevens. Could it be linked to Spring Hill Jack? I tend to believe it is, especially when you have a figure in white jumping high distances. That to me matches. It just didn't attack anybody, so nobody could say, hey, it had claws. Because apparently he had like metallic claws, which Mary Stevens described as being cold and clammy like the hands of a cadaver, is what she said, or a corpse. So that's why they think they're metallic, because they're cold. And again, all of these girls that were attacked besides Lucy Scale, I believe Jane Alsop was also badly injured because he's clawing at her neck and her arms on her bare skin. I mean, you got metal, even if they're not very sharp. If you, take the force of your clawing action and you swipe at somebody.
Fingernails too.
Just fingernails could hurt somebody. But I mean, if you put some metal on there and you scratch at them, you're going to tear them up, man.
Yeah.
So when the first reports of Mary Stevens came out and Jane Alsop, the local newspapers described them as perfectly sensible and not likely suffering with hallucinations. The victims.
Oh, okay.
So they didn't doubt that they were lying. They didn't know exactly what they saw, but even the interviewers, apparently, that interviewed them and the police officer said, hey, they seem perfectly sensible. They don't seem like they're hallucinating or they're crazy.
Or making up stories.
Making up stories, right. So they actually believed them.
Okay.
Which I thought was very interesting.
That is interesting.
And then again, that proclamation had gone out, and I guess they increased the watch, the night watch or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, the metal claws always struck me as odd, because how could you do that? Like a Freddy Krueger type thing is the only way you could do it. It would have to be like a gauntlet or something.
Yeah, like a glove or...
Because you can't glue on metal nails to your own fingernails.
No,
especially back then. And for
your fingernails wouldn't be strong enough to do that.
Right. And when you talk about, they would say he had metal nails, metal fingernails, if they were thin like ours. So when you describe it as claws, you're looking at like the talons of a bird or like the claws of a cat. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Or the claws you see on animals, like bear claws and stuff. So thick, very hardy claws. Yeah. Which I thought was fascinating because there's, in the Germany area, I believe, is a creature called the black anise, and it was it was either a cannibalistic witch or a vampire, and they said she had metal claws and that she clawed through solid stone to make her lair.
Oh wow!
To hunt the children in the area. It's like a localized folklore in that area. Yeah, I think it was in Germany. I didn't look it up. Maybe I should have. But I always say that.
I know.
We could pause it, and I could actually quickly look it up, and then we could sound like we know what we're talking about. But that's going against the rules.
Once again,
has to be
we are not professional.
Anyway, the other place that you see metal claws in folklore is Baba Yaga out of Russia. She apparently had metal teeth and metal claws. And she was like this witch. You know who I'm talking about?
No.
She flew around in a mortar and steered herself with the pestle.
Oh, okay.
And lived in a hut with chicken legs. You don't know Baba Yaga, really?
I still don't know. Yeah, you could tell me she was flying in an invisible airplane. I told you no. I don't know who.
Those stories are so good, baby. You have to read the Baba Yaga stories. They're so good.
I do not know who Baba Yaga is.
And then the other thing that got me, and I'm not going to go into detail here because it's in one of the inarguable truths,
is the balls of fire.
The red eyes.
Yeah, the red
eyes.
The
red flaming eyes.
Yeah.
Very odd.
Yeah.
Because if it's a mask or someone trying to appear scary, I don't see someone putting flames near their hair or by their eyes.
No.
You know what I'm saying? That's
pretty dangerous. But if it was
dangerous.
like a glass, though, like goggles or something.
And the goggles were flaming?
No, maybe it was like an optical illusion or something.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's just odd.
Either.
And then the ability to belch or vomit blue flames with enough force to blind two people.
Yeah.
Now, granted, the streets of London back then were very dark, even though they did have gas lamps, and we're going to talk about that in the inarguable truths. They did have gas lamps, but just like with the Whitechapel area and with, Jack the Ripper,
Yeah.
very dark, very foggy streets.
Yes.
So I think it would be easy to be blinded if somebody just suddenly blasted this flame out of the darkness
yeah.
and, just for a split second, your
Yeah.
night vision would be foiled and
Right.
whoa, what's going on? I can't
Right.
see.
Right.
So, but how do you do that? I mean, there were fire eaters back then, but what can you put in your mouth and blow out that makes specifically blue flames?
Yeah.
There's only a few things: natural gas, methane,
And then that's
being
not
one
going
of
to
them.
kill yourself.
Yeah, or poison yourself,
Yeah.
right? So I think we covered the red flags enough. Those were just things that just stuck out to me. And again, this show isn't contested. There's no.
Right.
We're not arguing against debunkers per se. Some of the theories, I decided not to cover them because we have enough stuff to talk about just in the inarguable truths.
Yeah.
Inarguable truth number 1.
Kissing a mask or helmet would not feel like lips.
Inarguable truth number 2.
The attacks continued after local smuggling declined.
Inarguable truth number 3.
Butane was first used in the UK in 1792 for gaslighting.
Inarguable truth number 4.
Slender Man originated from a Photoshop contest and then a creepypasta.
Inarguable truth number 5.
Strontium chloride was used in the UK to produce sugar from sugar beets.
Inarguable truth number 6.
There were possible copycats that were suspected and even arrested.
Inarguable truth number 7.
As late as the 1870s, the Park Ghost and the Peckham Ghost were both attributed to Bean Spring-Heeled Jack. All right, so let's go up to inarguable truth number 1, which is kissing a mask or helmet wouldn't feel like lips. Now, just for the sake of argument, let's say Mary Stevens was a decent young lady. And we know she was. She belonged to a good family. She wasn't like a prostitute or anything like that. You could make the argument, if he was wearing a helmet or a mask, how could he kiss her on the lips? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Unless it's like one of those half masks.
Oh, yeah.
Like a masquerade type?
Yeah, like a masquerade type.
Yeah, that just
over
covers
the
his...
nose and the eyes.
Yeah, up.
Yeah.
And his mouth is open. Now,
Yeah.
that's a possibility.
Yeah.
But then how's he breathing the flames?
Yeah.
It's just weird. So that always struck me as odd, because how do you explain that?
Yeah. I don't know.
Because apparently he was kissing her so much that she couldn't scream. Or maybe she was just in shock or something.
Well,
Perhaps.
that could be. Yeah, that could be.
But I mean, even a virginal girl, you know what I mean, who's inexperienced, knows what a kiss feels like. Because, ever since you're kids, you're getting kissed on the cheeks, kissed on the forehead.
Yes.
Even if you've never actually had a romantic kiss,
Yeah.
you still know what kisses feel like. You know what I
Right.
mean? So she wouldn't have described it as kissing if somebody's pressing this cold mask against her cheek or her mouth.
That's true.
Do you see what I'm saying? Or a
Yes, that's
metallic
true.
mask. She's not
Yeah.
going to say he was trying to kiss me. She's going to say, oh, he was headbutting me or something.
Yeah, that's true.
She actually said he forcibly kissed her after getting her in a bear hug, or tight grip is what they described it. But basically, she couldn't escape.
Right.
And she couldn't block her face. That's how he was able to kiss her. So I'm picturing a bear hug,
Yeah.
And that's inarguable truth number 1. I think that pretty much covers it.
Yeah,
because
that's
that's pretty much
that's
it.
Yeah.
And when you really look at inarguable truth number 1, it's really not for yay or nay on what Spring-Heeled Jack is. It's just something that's inarguable about it. So we're working our way down to the conclusions by eliminating things that can't be explained. Basically, is what we're doing
Gotcha.
with these inarguable
Okay.
truths.
Okay.
Which is not always the case in our other shows.
No.
Usually, we set up like the defense and the prosecutors are
Yes.
trying to, debunk
Yeah.
it, and we're defending. Not so in this. Because, again, there's no real opposition to it, except for some of the theories are pretty dumb. But let's move on to inarguable truth number 2. The attacks continued after local smuggling declined. Now, you might be reading that going, smuggling? are you talking about, man?
That's what I wanted to know.
Are you crazy? What are you talking about smuggling? Well, there was an increase in smuggling in that area, or around the area of London, like a massive increase. So what was happening is these smugglers, in order to keep their smuggling secret, they had patrols and men scaring people out of the area, right?
Okay.
So one of the possible explanations was, well, maybe if someone heard about Spring Heel Jack, why couldn't they just throw a mask on and scare people out of the area, waving a cloak and ooh,
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So, but the thing was, all research done on that possible explanation, when they really looked at the numbers, even after the smuggling declined, when they cracked down on it and started arresting all the smugglers and stuff, Spring Heel Jack was still being seen.
Okay.
So there was no change. If it was just smugglers scaring people,
right.
there was no change in the numbers. If against that attack.
Right.
So that to me is, nay, it probably wasn't smugglers trying to scare people. I think smugglers would probably just shoot in the air, hey, get out of here or whatever, start throwing rocks or whatever.
Yeah.
And I thought that was fascinating that they actually, this is how in depth some people researched this.
Yeah.
Because they actually looked at the smuggling around the area and trying to explain.
Well, that's a good idea. You make a ghoul or a scary person or a scary witch or something just to keep out of the areas so that you can do illegal acts. That makes sense to me.
So let's move on to inarguable truth number 3, which is butane was first used in the UK in 1792 for gas lighting. I didn't know that. They actually had gas lamps along some of the main streets that used butane or methane, natural gas. Now, the only reason I put this inarguable truth in there is, this is my own theories, because butane and methane burn with a blue flame. So if someone was trying to make some kind of weird mini flamethrower or something to scare people, butane and methane would have been on hand because it was being used in the city.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying? That it's not like it's some exotic thing that not in the area.
So he was like making some kind of concoction that was like a spray that he could do out of his mouth or whatever, or out of a mask.
Right. It's a possible logical explanation to what people were saying when they said that he was vomiting or belching these blue flames. Breathing these blue flames in people's faces or whatever. Because remember, it wasn't just the main attacks that reported it. It was also in that declaration where he talked about the poor servant girl, which is very similar to the Jane Alsop attack, remember? Because he knocked on her door and said, hey, bring a candle.
Yes.
And she went out there and got attacked. Well, apparently the same thing happened to the servant girl. He knocked on the door. She opens the door, and there he is on the stoop and starts attacking her. Or no, I think he just blew the blue flames in her face, and she, collapsed in these fits. Which is another thing that was really odd to me. I mean, it could be attributed to, the swooning, women fainting and stuff.
Yes.
But I think that was more, theatrical. I don't think that was... You don't, swoon, back then. I think that was more like literature and theatrics. I don't think women just... and just fainted.
Yeah.
Any more than they do now.
I don't think so.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were more delicate back then. No, I don't believe that for a second.
No.
There was still tough women back then.
Yes.
So I don't really accept that. But the blue flames resulting in fits.
Oh, yes.
I thought maybe there was a chemical that could produce blue flames that when, the exhaust or the byproduct of the burning of this material maybe caused them to lose control of their facilities for a split second, or maybe even kind of poisoned them for a little bit.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I didn't do that in-depth research to it, but I just thought it was very odd that in both reports of the blue flames, both victims collapsed in these fits.
Yeah, and the one never...
And the one never recovered. The one did. Mary, what was it?
Jane Oslop. Lucy
Scales.
Yeah.
Lucy Scales recovered within a few minutes.
But the servant girl didn't.
But the servant girl apparently didn't. She just stayed...
it was some kind of poison or something.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Yeah,
and I don't know, I'm not a chemist,
Right.
So I don't know.
Right.
I'm sure there's people out there that could say, "Oh, that's easy."
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
I just thought it was fascinating. I think that's good enough to qualify for an inarguable truth.
Yeah.
Because it is possibly an explanation as to what was going on.
Yeah.
So as you can see with some of the inarguable truths, I'm not really saying yay or nay on what I think it is yet, because
Correct.
we're going to save that for the conclusion.
Yes, of course. Like we always do.
Yeah. So we're going to move on to inarguable truth number 4 now, which is Slender Man was originated from a Photoshop contest and then a creepypasta. Now, that might just totally throw you for a loop, right? What are you
Yeah, I
talking
don't know
about?
what
Slender
the
Man?
heck you're talking
Creepypasta?
about.
What are you
Yeah,
talking
when I
about?
said it, I was like, oh, okay.
Well, because there's more modern skeptics weighed in on this.
Okay.
And their explanation was, well, it's just folklore, like, the phenomenon of Slender Man. And, you know what Slender Man was, right? It was a Photoshop contest of somebody to create a scary
Oh, yes, I remember
bad
that.
guy.
Yes, I remember that.
And it was this faceless, dark-suited, long-armed,
Yes.
very thin,
Yeah.
very tall man.
Yeah.
That apparently, I don't know why, I didn't think it was scary at all, but apparently some people thought it was so scary, and it kind of like went viral.
Yeah.
And they even made movies and
Yeah.
video games on it and
Yeah.
everything.
Comic
So-
books, didn't they do a comic book?
Yeah,
or
or something. I don't know. I never understood the
Yeah.
whole, because I thought it was dumb looking,
Yeah.
in my opinion. He was wearing a suit.
Yeah.
And then he didn't have a face. What's scary about not having a face?
Who knows? Some
Well,
people,
anyway,
you know.
I think maybe the height and the length of the arms,
Yeah.
maybe.
Creepy.
Because that is kind of creepy,
Yeah,
yeah.
creepy.
Having long arms.
Yeah.
But
Sorry
that's,
for anybody that has long arms.
no, baby, we're talking about
I know.
arms that are like.
I'm just joking.
But I thought it was funny that you're going to try to compare that to these stories.
Yeah.
Something that is visual
Yeah.
and has been copycatted. You type in Slender Man
Yeah.
in a Google search and go to images, you're gonna find all kinds of fan art and
Yeah.
amateur art and
Right,
all this
right.
kind of stuff on the side
Right.
away from the original photo copy. The cartoon drawings, paintings, all kinds of stuff that fans did of Slender Man.
Okay.
Well, that's beating Slender Man into your face.
Yeah.
We're talking back in the 1800s. You're looking at maybe somebody hear ye, or whatever,
Yeah.
ringing a bell or putting out the newspaper. That's
Yeah.
the only mention you're going to have. You know?
That's true. Yeah.
It's not being browbeaten into your head, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, there wasn't.
Plus, at the time, creepypasta was really, really just coming, because that was the other thing. It became a creepypasta because people wanted. Creepypasta put out that they wanted people to do another contest and write a scary story featuring Slender Man.
Oh, okay.
So again, you're involving thousands of people
Correct.
in a wide area on the internet and on social media.
Yeah, that's.
So
yeah,
how
that's
can you
you
compare
can't.
that?
To something that happened
I thought
in
that was such a-
1837. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
It's a weak argument.
It is. It is.
Saying
I
that,
agree.
it's just made up, just like Slender Man was. What?
Yeah.
Sightings going. Another thing is, when's the last time you heard of Slender Man? I think the movie came out in like 2005 or something.
Yeah.
Or 2015, I think, something like
Yeah.
that. Probably should have looked that up. But it's been a while.
Yeah.
It was like a flap.
Yeah.
And then it went away.
Yeah.
You don't
A
hear about
fad.
it anymore.
Yeah, just a fad.
Well, Spring Hill Jack, if one is to accept the idea that the Hammersmith and the Southampton ghost could have been attributed to him, you're talking from the early 1800s
Yeah.
all the way into the 1870s
Yeah.
that he was being
that's
cited.
decades.
That's decades
Yeah,
of
that's
sighting. And
decades.
even if you just take from 1837 from the original Mary Stevens,
It's still
it's
almost
still
30
decades.
something years.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not a flap
No.
like
Yeah.
Slender Man.
Yeah.
We haven't been hearing, we're still not talking, I mean, we're talking about him now, but only because somebody brought him up.
Right.
But he's not viral anymore, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Spring Hill
He's
Jack
not
was
popular.
still being cited.
Right.
People were still reporting on him. In fact, I think in the late 1840s, there was like I don't want to say a comic book, but I think it was a comic book, and it featured Spring Hill Jack. He was like a character, like a villain.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if it was a superhero comic or what, but I can't remember.
Storybook.
Yeah, it was like a story, like an
Yeah.
illustrated
A
storybook,
storybook.
like a comic
Yeah.
book is basically what it was. And
Yeah.
it featured these short stories featuring
Yeah.
Spring Hill Jack, and I think it was published for like years.
Yeah.
So that's where I think that's where it kind of like changed his image to like being like a gentleman wearing a suit.
Okay. Yeah, because if you look at some of the images,
Top hat.
Yeah,
you know,
the top hat.
Flying. He could fly with his wings instead of jumping, you know?
Yeah.
Stuff like this. I think it was that was exaggerated because of the comic book aspect of it.
Yeah.
Which kind of sucks because it kind of like they kind of overlap each other in it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was inarguable truth number 4. Let's move on to inarguable truth number 5, which is strontium chloride was used in the UK to produce sugar from sugar beets. Strontium chloride, when burned, burns red with a red flame. And again, you know, for his eyes.
Right.
Again, this chemical was being used in the 1800s in the UK, you know, for, I don't know, some process of getting the sugar out of beets.
Okay.
Because it was like I think it's a salt.
But don't some of the stuff that you're talking about, like the butane and this chloride, but that would be so dangerous around your eyes.
Exactly.
And your face. I mean, especially your eyes and your face, like right around the softest and most.
But like you said, if he's wearing goggles.
Yeah, that's the only thing I could think of is goggles.
It's just very. That's why I wanted to put it in the inarguable truth, because I think it's odd. It's at least you can't just say there wasn't anything in that time frame.
Yeah.
That couldn't produce blue flames and couldn't produce red flames, because there was.
Right.
And they were readily being used in the area at that time for mass production. I mean, gas lamps were all over London.
Yeah.
I don't even know how many gas lamps they probably had. Thousands, probably.
But it makes me think, because like now, you know, we do use eye gear for safety, you know, for different occupations. But,
Yeah.
But back then, did we? I mean, you know what I mean? When people were dealing with chemicals and stuff, I know they had glasses. I know they had, you know, they
monocles
had
and
monocles
stuff,
and stuff. But did they have goggles?
I think some stagecoach drivers had, because that's where the steampunk stuff comes from.
Okay.
You know, where they wear the leather strapped goggles and stuff.
Yeah.
I know they started wearing them when they started driving automobiles too, but I think even with like, you know, riders, they would wear them because of the dust and stuff kicked up by their horses and stuff.
That makes sense.
So
okay.
I think goggles have been around. They would have been around in this time frame again, which can we just say, in other words, what I'm saying is that if you're a skeptic and you're looking at this skeptically, you can't just say, well, red flames, that's just people making stuff up. That's just some girl getting scared. Nothing to see here. Well, no. There's actually a scientific explanation to the possibility of producing red flames.
Yeah.
There's an actual explanation to producing blue flames back then.
And butane.
Because that's the first thing I thought is blue flames.
Yeah.
What? But so I researched it, and lo and behold, yes, they could have produced blue flames and red flames back then. So
gotcha.
it can't just be readily dismissed, is what I'm saying.
Right.
I'm not saying either yay or nay.
Right.
You know, with the whole helmet, because we're going to get into that.
Yeah.
But anyway, in this further in this inarguable truth, it's not a very good explanation because, like you said, you're putting this strontium chloride near your eyes, even if you're wearing goggles, and then lighting it on fire.
Yeah. Your eyes are your most sensitive. Like, even the skin around your eyes is the most sensitive part of your face.
And I don't know how hot it burns.
Yeah,
I don't know how long it burns. I don't know what kind of fumes it gives off when you burn it. I mean, it could be poisonous fumes. I don't know.
Just think about how easy it is to like burn yourself on the stove or lighting a match or a candle. It's really easy to burn yourself, and just around your eyes. Oh goodness.
Well, your hair too.
Yeah, oh goodness.
You're around your hair.
Yeah, your hair will fry. Your hair will just catch on fire.
Gentlemen used to wear those ponytails back then. You know what I mean?
Or those
the
wigs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Huh?
Yeah, you wearing a wig and you got fire.
That'd be flammable.
You'd be running around. You'd have a serious problem.
You look like that guy with the flames on that Christmas special. You know, with the flames. I don't know.
Christmas special.
Yeah, one of those Christmas cartoons. He's got the flames on his head.
Oh, Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
You're talking about the Ghost of Christmas Present.
Yeah.
So I think we covered that one. Let's move on to inarguable truth number 6, which is there were possible copycats that were suspected and even arrested around the time of these sightings. There was a man named Captain Finch who apparently was like he was a drunk and he was abusive towards women because I guess his wife left him and had a real bad divorce and he lost a bunch of stuff. So he was accused of attacking women, and when they went to arrest him, they found a mask and I think a knife in his and then the dark cloak. So it was like he was dressing up as Spring Hill Jack and attacking these women. Trying to say it was it's Spring Hill Jack, not me type thing, but they nailed him, and apparently he went to prison and had to pay like a fine for each attack.
Oh, okay.
So that was fascinating to me.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But again, after Captain Finch was arrested, Spring Hill Jack didn't slow down. He was still being cited, like I said, all the way up into the 1870s.
Right.
There's a report of him. Oh, well, we're going to go into that in the inarguable truth number 7. So another suspect was the Mad Marquis. Marquis? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's Marquis.
Marquis?
Yeah, that's how they say it. Marquis.
Mad Marquis of Waterford. Now, this guy apparently was kind of like Captain Finch, but he was just a nut.
Okay.
And he was violent with everybody. He would try to start fights with people and he was
just an angry person.
Yeah. So they suspected him and followed him around, I guess, put like surveillance on him, but he never exhibited any masks or any kind of copycat, but that was a suspect.
Yeah, he was just violent.
Right.
Okay.
He was actually suspected of possibly doing this. And that goes along
But
with
was never arrested.
No.
Okay.
Not that I could find.
That you could find, yeah. Huh. Interesting.
And another suspect was they thought that perhaps they were pranksters. And this goes along with some of the theories. Some people think that it was probably pranksters.
Or like a society or something? Angry men?
No, they're saying like kids, basically.
Oh, okay.
Like young
young
kids
men.
attacking young women, for, bravery or whatever.
Yeah.
I completely dismiss that.
Yeah.
Because the attacks, you're risking life and limb. I mean, you're talking about somebody getting shot 30 years prior, and you're going to put on a mask, and plus, how do you explain them jumping 9 feet in the air?
Yeah, that's the one thing that's getting me is the 9 feet in the air.
I mean, his nickname is Spring Heel, not his nickname. His actual title is Spring Heel Jack, and the reason they call him that is, maybe there was some kind of mechanics or something.
Right.
Which I don't know how you would do that in your boots, but apparently, maybe he had jet thrusters in his boots, or whatever. But how do you explain that? It doesn't explain the red flames. No. It doesn't explain the blue flames. It doesn't explain him being able to jump from rooftop to rooftop just because you're a young lad wearing oilskin. Because apparently, from what I could tell from oilskins, is they're pretty heavy. Not something you would want to wear if you're going to be bounding around everywhere. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, that's interesting.
Plus, you're wearing a helmet or a mask, or both. Yeah. Who knows? It just, you know what I mean? It just falls short if you're going to just say it was kids pranking or whatever.
Right.
To me, that's just dismissive.
Yeah.
It's too dismissive for me. And then when you start breaking it down and go along with the facts, it just starts falling apart on you, just like I just did.
Yeah.
So let's move on to inarguable truth number 7.
Okay.
We're at the finish line, baby.
Yes.
We can see it in sight.
Yes.
And then we're going to go over some of the theories after we're done with this one. As late as the 1870s, the Park Ghost and the Peckham Ghost were both attributed to being Spring Hill Jack. If you're looking at a possibility of the early 1800s all the way into the 1870s, I believe it was in 1879 when he was sighted by this famous archway. I believe that still exists today. And people said he was wearing sheepskin, which could have been mistaken for the oilskin, the white oilskins.
Okay.
And that they shot at him, and he leaped over that arc and leaped far distances away from him like a frog.
Yeah.
And escaped and let out this awful, god-awful laughter.
Yeah.
And the gunfire didn't affect him. So I think that's fascinating because the Park Ghost and the Peckham Ghost, they're both little parks in the outskirts of London.
Okay.
And I believe both of them still exist to this day, I believe.
The parks?
Yes.
Okay.
And I guess the folklore before Spring Hill Jack became prominent was they're just ghosts. Those parks are haunted. But he was being seen in those parks for decades.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, here comes these tales of Spring Hill Jack, and then they see this, like I said, people saw him jumping over this arc, and they're shooting at him, and he's laughing. That fits Spring Hill Jack to a T.
Yeah.
So he was being sighted all the way up until the late 1879.
Wow.
And possibly even after that. I don't know, because I couldn't find any other reports, but I think the interest in Spring Hill Jack kind of waned,
Okay.
primarily because of the big guy, the one.
Oh, yes.
You know who I'm going to talk
Oh,
about.
yeah.
Because that's one of my theories.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I forgot
Talking
about
about none other.
Yes.
I'll just say I am not a kid nor a yid, nor yet a common skipper, but I am your one true loving friend, yours truly, Jack the Ripper. The Ripper, baby. The biggin. Yeah. He, I believe, in the late 1800s, which it was at 1889 when the attacks and the murders happened, or 1888, I think.
Yeah, in the 1880s.
Which is only, 9 years after the last sighting of Spring Hill Jack.
Yeah.
Wearing a dark cloak, able to disappear. He was never caught.
Yeah.
If he can bound over walls and stuff, how is anybody going to capture him?
That's true.
If he's able to blind his victims, if he's using these metal claws, he could easily mutilate these poor women that were his victims.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes,
it starts to, the pieces kind of fit a little bit.
Yeah.
Not saying that it was. It's just one of my theories. Is it a possibility? Because all of a sudden the reports of Spring Hill Jack just fade away, and here comes Jack the Ripper. I don't understand how nobody's pieced those together.
That's a lot of years, though, for...
9 years?
No, because wasn't it when was the first sighting of Spring Hill? When did he attack?
1804.
1804?
As the ghost. But possibly 1837.
To 1870?
Yeah. So what is that? 50-something years?
That's a long time for back then. People didn't live that long.
Well, there's some people that don't think Jack the Ripper was a human.
Yeah, that's true.
Because of the way he was able to avoid being captured.
Right.
Nobody
Right.
saw him.
Right.
And he was able to butcher these women, baby.
Yeah.
Mutilate them.
Yeah. You could be onto something, because they say that, like, serial killers, they start out real small and then go to
Get worse.
get worse and worse. So you could be onto something.
Yep.
Yeah, you could. Your theory could be.
It's just a theory.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Speculation. There's
Yeah,
no proof. I don't have any
speculation.
evidence.
Yeah.
It's just weird. It's weird how Jack the Ripper eclipsed Spring Hill Jack, and all the reports of Spring Hill Jack went away, and that the Ripper just vanished. Just vanished.
Yeah. Interesting.
Those 5 victims, that was it.
Yeah.
There's actually theories that there were more victims, because like body parts were being found in like the sewers and stuff, and they don't know who killed those women, and they were prostitutes.
Oh, wow.
And if somebody's going to be chopping up female bodies,
Yeah, and
around that time frame,
and they could have gone from, like, because you're talking about these innocent women at first, and then the innocent women, of course, men are going to pay attention to that more.
Yep.
The government's going to pay attention to that more. But once it's prostitutes, unfortunately, they're not going to pay attention.
right? That is still to this day the case.
Yes.
That and
Unfortunate.
I don't even know if that's definitely part of it, but I think another part of it is that in order to do business, a prostitute would have to kind of take you into a secluded area,
Yeah.
a private area,
Yeah.
a dark area,
Yeah, put herself in
put herself in
put
peril.
herself in a
Whereas a
situation.
lady would stay on the main
yeah,
streets in
yeah.
the lit areas. You know what I mean? She's
Yeah.
not going to be walking around in the dark
Yeah.
where all the vagrants and stuff
Yeah,
are.
that's true. That's true.
With all the the shenanigans going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, shenanigans.
Shenanigans.
Yeah.
I love that word. Anyway, some believed that Spring Hill Jack was actually a demon summoned by practitioners of the occult.
Okay.
Possible extraterrestrial is another explanation for Spring Hill Jack, because it would explain his weird costume, the metal helmet, the metal claws, the ability to produce fire, the burning red eyes. Maybe there was some kind of helmet that I don't know, but it technology is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There was some
Yeah.
type of technology.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why these women, when the flames were produced, dropped into these fits. Because we're not talking about a fire that was created with butane or methane. We're talking about a fire that was not necessarily
From this earth.
From this earth, right?
Yeah.
And I know that's way out there.
Yeah, that is.
Whoa there, buddy. You're going way out on a limb there. I was following you, but now you just lost me, buddy. Not saying that's a
Yeah.
feasible explanation,
Yeah.
but it's a possibility, and it checks most of the boxes.
Yeah.
Maybe he had a jetpack, and that's why he was able to leap from building to building and over tall walls. I don't know. Why he would attack women? I don't know.
Make his own race or something.
Trying to abduct them?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're kissing them, that's of a racy nature. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It's not like you're
Yeah.
just attacking them, trying to kill them like Jack the Ripper did.
Yeah.
There was no evidence Jack the Ripper had any
Relations.
relations with these women.
Right.
He was trying to kill them.
Yeah.
That's his whole MO, and not just kill them, but
Mutilate them.
yeah,
Yeah.
just degrade them.
Yeah.
Like just angry
Yes.
rage, you know. I don't know. The extraterrestrial one's interesting to me.
It's a little overboard for me.
The summoned demon too. I mean, why would it attack girls though? Just girls. If it's a demon, it's not going to just target women or children. This was specifically young girls. You know, it just doesn't. I don't know. It falls short. All of them fall short.
Yeah.
It's why it's been a mystery all this time. But
Correct.
I think it's my theory that it was. I'm not going to say Spring Hill Jack was the murderer in the Ripper cases, but I would argue blue in the face that if it was Spring Hill Jack, after the Ripper attacks, he vanished. And if it wasn't Spring Hill Jack, then I think it's very, very suspect that not only reports of him vanished, but reports of Jack the Ripper vanished all at once. Very, very
Interesting.
suspicious.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And it's all in the same. In fact, when I was doing my cursory research, I didn't realize that Spring Hill Jack was around the London area. I thought it was like in a different part of England.
Ah, okay.
It wasn't until I started looking up the spots, because they're talking about Clapham Commons and Lavender Hill and all this, and I'm like, well, where are those? You know,
Yeah.
Peckham Park, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're not from that area.
No, we
I
don't
think
know.
even people living in the UK probably don't even know where
Yeah.
that is. Some
Yeah.
people, you know, living up in Scotland or living in Wales,
Yeah.
they're not going to know where that is, just off the top of their heads.
Yeah.
They'd have to look it up just like us.
Right.
So when I looked it up, it's in the outskirts, in this what we call the suburbs of London. I
Okay.
don't know what they call them in the UK.
Well, we'll just call it suburbs.
Yeah,
It's
in
just
this,
easier
it's
for
the
us.
outskirts of London,
Yes.
basically.
Yeah.
Which was where the attacks in Whitechapel of the Ripper occurred.
Okay.
In the outskirts of London.
Interesting. Okay.
9-year span of sightings
Yeah.
only.
Yeah.
Again, they said that he wore a long dark cloak, Jack the Ripper. Nobody ever saw his face.
Yeah.
He just seemed to vanish from the areas. I mean, I think one of the victims, the blood was still running when they found her.
Ooh.
The blood was still running out of her.
Yeah.
She had just been killed.
Yeah.
And nobody saw anything. So could he have sprung away on top of a roof and just... I mean, if you're down on a dark street holding a lantern,
Yeah.
and somebody's killing this girl and you start running toward him and he leaps on a roof, you get over there, she's dying. She's either just been killed or dying, and you're looking around going, where's the perpetrator?
Right.
It would appear as though he just vanished into thin air, is my point, is my argument.
Okay.
It ticks some of the boxes
Yeah.
for Spring Hill Jack. Again, if he had the red flaming eyes and stuff, I don't think he could have lured prostitutes into,
Yeah.
his services or whatever.
Right.
But maybe he just took the helmet off.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know?
maybe.
Or maybe it was dark enough to where he could wear the mask and they just couldn't see him well enough. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's very odd to me. So I think that about does it.
I think so.
In conclusion, baby, what do you think Spring Hill Jack was?
I think it was some kind of demon. I think it was something evil. Because I don't think, we touched some stuff that could be possibilities for the blue flames but the 9 feet, just the 9 feet jumping a wall, that just no. So I'm gonna say it reminds me of Candyman. You know what I mean?
So you think it was like paranormal?
Oh yeah, paranormal. It's like a evil. It's somebody brought that onto the earth or something.
See, I could get on board with that theory, except why did it just vanish? Because there's been no sightings of Spring Hill Jack, and no sightings.
Maybe that person died that brought it to earth, and
that's a
it went to
possibility.
hell with that person.
That's a possibility.
I'm just saying. That's
don't-
what I think.
I don't know enough about the conjuring of demons
Thank goodness.
to comment on that.
I don't either.
But I do believe there is a rule that if you do conjure something, that when you die, the conjuration is canceled, or any spells or rituals or seals in the magic world. If you die, they go away.
Correct.
I believe.
Yeah.
So that's a possibility. The
Yeah.
person dies, and this
Yeah. it just
whatever
went
the
away.
heck Spring Hill Jack was,
Yeah.
and in my opinion, also Jack the Ripper, they just
Yeah.
vanished.
Yeah.
It's a possibility because that's like what 80, 85 years.
Yeah. That's a person's life.
Yeah. Well, no, because if you're going from the 1830s, then yeah, that's like 60 years.
Yeah.
So that is a possibility.
Yeah.
You'd have to dismiss the whole Hampton
Right.
and Hammersmith ghost, though.
Yeah, but that there's ghost stories of all kinds of parks and stuff. So that could be a total different ghost story. They just put it together.
My conclusion is I believe it was paranormal. I don't see how else you could explain, like you said, the leaping, the far jumps. I don't see how you could explain the laughter that is enough to frighten off pursuers.
Right.
Because men are defenders,
Yes.
particularly when it comes to women.
Yes.
Men will rush to a woman's aid. It's just in our nature.
Right.
Especially if it's our woman. Men
Yes.
are very protective.
Yes.
Sometimes overly. But the point is, when these young girls are getting attacked, and these guys are running over there, passersby, and they're like, "Hey, there he goes, get him!" And they're lighting their torches and getting their pitchforks.
right.
For them to be enraged
stop.
to see this poor girl laying there
Yes.
bloody and her clothes are torn and she's sobbing and screaming hysterically, that's going to enrage a mob.
Yeah.
And here they go tearing off after this escaping figure, and just with a laugh, they all go, "Ooh,"
Yeah.
and stop,
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
car, Very odd to me. The other thing, how do you explain the red flames of the eyes? How do you explain the belching of flames? I mean, you could say that maybe they were mistaken, but it was right in her face.
Yeah.
These girls saw it was. She was close enough to see his clothing by candlelight.
Yeah.
And you know how dark it is around that London, around that time frame.
Right.
She was only holding a candle, and she was able to see his clothing and that he was wearing a helmet and that that his eyes were flaming.
Yeah.
I don't think they were embellishing or making up. And again, when the interviewers actually talk to the girl, and if there's anybody going to be skeptical about this, it's going to be journalists.
Right.
And the journalists claimed they seemed to be of senses, and they didn't seem to be suffering from hallucinations.
Yeah.
So they seemed in their right minds.
Right.
They didn't seem to be embellishing or lying or anything
Right.
like that.
Right.
Of these 3 young girls that got attacked.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that just throws that out the window if you're going to say, well, they just made it up, they didn't know what they were seeing or whatever. No, I don't think that. I think then you have to ignore evidence, and we're not going to do that.
Right.
The other thing is the cloak's shaped like bat wings, because I thought, to me, when I originally started doing the research into this, I thought that the whole bat cloak thing came from the comic.
Oh, okay.
Because in the comic, he's like this devil with like this, dastardly look, and he's got this bat
Cloak.
wings he's almost like a Batman-like character, but he's a villain.
Yeah.
But no, the reports came before
Yeah.
the whole comic. They were before the comic. So very odd to me. Why have that?
Well,
I mean, even if it's a costume.
and they do have like descriptions of like the devil that has the wings.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it was
something
yeah.
paranormal, or possibly paranormal, at least. So that's my theory. I think it was something paranormal.
Okay.
So thank you for listening. If you want to support the show, give us a like, give us a positive review. Go to our Facebook page, go to our email. You want to send us a scary story so we can do a story time show. If it's too long to type to us in an email, go get a free app for your phone, a digital recorder, record it in your own voice, and just email it to us that way. And we'll either play it directly on the show or we'll just say it in our own words like we did last time.
Yep. Thank you all for listening. Good night.